Hello students, welcome to a new chapter that is compounds containing nitrogen. In this first module, we would start with the introduction to nitro compounds. Next, we would start with its classification, and lastly, we would discuss one important phenomena called as tautomerism. So let's first start with the name of the chapter itself. The name of the chapter says compounds containing nitrogen. So what exactly is nitrogen? Nitrogen is nothing but diatomic gas found into nature, wherein it would be having 7 as its atomic number and 14 as its atomic weight. Further, if we go on and discuss about its electronic configuration, it would be 1s2, 2s2, 2p3. So now what we would do is, we would just write down the outermost shell or the valence shell electronic configuration. It is nothing but 2s2, 2p3, wherein 2p3 can also be written down as 2px1, 2py1, 2pz1. So obviously what we would get is, we would be having 3 boxes with single electrons. That means nitrogen requires 3 more electrons to complete the total number of 8 electron, that is its octet. So definitely valency of nitrogen happens to be 3, whereas it also consists of 2 electrons in form of a lone pair or a non-bonding pair. Further, now let's discuss about all the compounds which consist of nitrogens. So let's try to name some of them. The very first compound which I can recollect is nitro NO2. The next which I can say is nothing but a compound group, amine. Next, then amine, I would recollect a group called as cyanide and isocyanide, that is CN and NC respectively. Furthermore, we would talk about a group that is nothing but a compound group, amide, and a compound group that would be called as an diazonium salt. So, we have altogether these all groups, wherein in this chapter we would be dealing with nitro, amines and diazonium groups. So now, finally let's start with our first group, that is the nitro group. So let's start with this. Nitro compounds. What are nitro compounds? The very first question coming into our mind. So let's answer this question. Firstly, let's take an alkane which is represented as RH. Now, what I am doing right now is, I am removing one hydrogen, whereas adding one nitro group. So what exactly we would get? We would get a compound that would be RNO2, and this would be called as nitroalkane. So let's take an example for this. If we happen to have a molecule of methane, that is CH4, written down as CH3H, what is my aim? I need to remove one hydrogen and add a one nitro group. So what exactly we would get? We would get a compound CH3NO2, and this would be called as nitromethane. So what we can say right now is, what are nitro compound? These are nothing but compounds in which either one or more hydrogens of an alkane is replaced by a nitro group. So definitely they are nitro derivatives of alkane. Now, we have already understood with what is nitro compounds. Now let's try to move into their classification, and for this I have 3 examples for you. Now, into the first example, what I can observe, nitro is attached to a carbon atom, which is a primary carbon atom. And why is it primary? Because it is directly attached to only one carbon atom. Next, in the second example, what I can observe, nitro group is attached to a secondary carbon. And my dear students, why is it secondary? Because it is attached to 2 carbon atoms. In the third example, nitro group is attached to a tertiary carbon atom. And why tertiary? Because it has been attached to 3 carbon atoms. So what we can say, nitroalkanes are of 3 types: primary nitroalkane, secondary nitroalkanes, and tertiary nitroalkanes. Now, we have already discussed about classification. Let's try and go into more detail of this group. So, if we take an example, let's suppose we have an example of RCH2NO2. The same NO2 group can be written down like this. And now what happens? Let's understand. NO2 group, that is an electron withdrawing group. And because of this, what would happen? All the alpha hydrogens attached to the alpha carbon-minded students would be acidic. And because of this acidic nature of hydrogen, we happen to get a phenomena called as tautomerism, because whenever hydrogen or acidic hydrogens are attached alternative to double bond, then we would get this phenomena. So let's see how this works. Firstly, what happens is oxygen, that is an electronegative oxygen, takes out the double bond towards itself. So now, what would nitrogen do? He would take out the electrons from carbon. Similarly, carbon would take the electrons from hydrogen, thereby rendering him a electron deficient unit. That is a unit which is positively charged. So finally, a positively charged hydrogen would attack over to the negatively charged oxygen, giving us a compound that is RCH, N, single bond OH, single bond O, but the CN bond is a double bond. Now because of this, what happens? We happen to get 2 forms, nitro and isonitro. Isonitro is also referred as acidic form, whereas nitro is called as pseudo-acidic form. Next, this acidic form is called as nitronic acid, and the second most important point over here is tautomerism is only shown by primary and secondary nitro compounds because they have at least 1 alpha hydrogens. So definitely tertiary nitro groups would not show tautomerism. This was all, students, for this module. Meet you in the next module. Till then, thank you.